So, Sean, this would be good for you to talk about since it's about law. Okay. Obsidian co-founder urges rejected devs to sue Avowed Studio over allegations of illegal racist hiring practices. Do they have that tweet in this article? I don't know if... So Grum started posting about it here. What was that guy's name? Matt Hansen. So he came out and said, reminder, this is him right here. He's the art director at Obsidian. If you've played Knights of the Old Republic 2. He's been art director at
Obsidian for 9 years.
Oh, so he wasn't part of their glory age.
No.
When they were making...
No.
He's like Outer Worlds, probably, and like Avowed and that kind of stuff. But no.
Damien, I got
and
some...
the guy you're talking about, his name is Chris Avalon. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I got some info on.
Hold on, let me read this tweet real quick. Reminder to black artists out there who are looking for portfolio reviews or job advice. My DMs are open, and you will always have my priority. We got too many crusty white dudes in this field. Please let me help you replace me one day. I want to go back to living in the woods.
Wow.
Why are we always so crusty? Dude. I don't get it. What is crusty?
It's so pathetic.
Well, that's a...
Krusty's a clown.
Grum, what did you have to say?
Well, I at the appropriate point, I think there's some information that I got that I wanted to run by you because you've been talking to some people in the studio, right? Or talking about this situation?
I haven't been talking about it. I did 3 videos in a row about it. My next one tomorrow is not about this at all, but yeah, I've been talking to people. Yeah.
Well, this is total speculation, right? And so I guess this needs to be confirmed. But people are saying that he ran into some sort of HR trouble at the studio, and he totally switched and went on this crusade to virtue signal. And I have no idea. It's just this is just a random tip, and I wanted to confirm it with you. Or
that can happen.
Smash. And that after that, and then the rest of the rumor kind of coincides with what Smash has reported, that he became very difficult to work with within the studio after that point, and and was very antagonistic like this in his DMs, not his DMs, but his posts. That's his demeanor in the studio too. That's what Smash's sources are saying.
Yeah, he's apparently. I mean, he's not fired, but if I understand, he's
Can we break this down for everyone that's listening, the 3,000 people?
Yeah, so basically to kind of reiterate quickly, Matt Hansen, art director of Avowed, works at Obsidian Entertainment. Basically, he comes out and says in that tweet you're reading there from Blue Sky, which is not a tweet, they call it like a skeet or some shit. But anyway,
he's a former he's a former dev, right?
No, he still works at Obsidian. He's still
Chris
there.
does?
And Chris Matt Hansen.
Matt Hansen does, but Chris Avalon, the guy.
Chris Avalon. That's my bad. Chris Avalon was one of the co-founders of Obsidian Entertainment. He's a very well-known game designer. He worked on Fallout New Vegas. He worked on Jedi Fallen Order and many, many other games. Like you've probably played something that he's been a part of. Anyway, he got accused of sexual assault by 2 females, and his name got raked through the coals. He left Obsidian. He got pulled off of Dying Light 2, which he was working on at the time, by the way, with Techland. And then basically over time, by 2023, he was able to clear his name and prove that he didn't actually do what they said that he did. He won a case, won in the millions. He actually even had those females that, accused him of SA to go on his personal blog on his website and be like, hello, we are so-and-so. We want to confirm that Chris Avalon did not do anything. He never did anything at Obsidian. He never misused funds, all that stuff. So his name got completely cleared. Like he didn't do anything wrong. And he has publicly stated, I think it's on Game Rant somewhere, that he never wants to work at Obsidian again, which is really bad for them because, again, all of their best games, Chris Avalon was a part of them, which no surprise there. And then this guy, Matt Hansen, this art director, basically saying there, I want to take black people over white people. I want to replace us. And then Chris Avalon comes out and basically says, if you have ever applied to Obsidian Entertainment, specifically for art, but other things too, I guess, if you've ever been rejected for a job, you should find out if you were rejected basically based on your race.
They would
And
never admit that, though.
they would never admit that. However, you have to realize too, right? They would have to have legal documents of you applying to the job, because otherwise people could just apply for the same job 100 times and there would be no paper trail. So they would have documents being like, let's just say the guy who applied, his name is John Smith. Let's just make up somebody, right? John Smith's a white guy. He's an art developer. Let's work at Obsidian, and they don't give John Smith the job. Okay, fine, because he's white. They would have John Smith's document at Obsidian, and even if they attempt to say that they didn't, and if they deleted it or they changed it or something, the reality is that John Smith would have a copy of the rejection letter in his own personal use, maybe in his email, whatever. So if the people that came forward and said that, like, oh, I got rejected for being white, and they go, well, how can you prove that? If they would have the same info that Obsidian would have on them, you know what I mean? With, like, in their own personal use.
Yeah.
So the only way Matt Hansen probably wouldn't get sued is if nobody comes forward, basically. But if anyone comes forward, like Chris Avalon said, they could theoretically sue Obsidian for racial discrimination. I mean, it is what it is.
What do you think about that, Sean?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it is. You're making an easy case. Normally, it's almost impossible to show this, but when you're out there doing this, the company can't just let them go ahead and do this.
Would they have to establish a pattern, like basically get 5 white applicants in a row and then combine it with this tweet and then show that there's
I think what they would do, because again, right, Obsidian can't delete the documents. Legally, they can't do that. And if they got caught being like, let's say that 5 applicants, that were white applied to Obsidian, right? Around the same time. They all got denied, and they all come together and go like, hey, I applied in this year. I applied a month later, da-da-da-da-da. And then Obsidian goes, oh, we have no record of that. Like those employees, those would-be employees, I guess, they would have records because they would have rejection letters from Obsidian. They'd be like, hello, so-and-so, you applied for X job. We said no. And then the court would just go in and go, okay, well, then who did you hire at that time? And who was the person that signed off on the hiring? And then if they find out that the people that got hired for the art department, I guess, let's say, right? And they all unanimously end up being like, I don't know, like, so let's say they're all black people, right? Then they can go, oh, that's weird that Matt Hansen said this publicly. And then we found out that you hired X amount of devs that are black people, but then you also rejected X amount of devs that are white people. And we have the patterns, we have all the information. Yes, they could definitely get sued. That's what looking at it, that's why I see it.
They can get sued. And when you get to like you're talking about, you were going to say pattern and practice. Yeah. And even if it's not a policy, and even if you don't stick to that the whole time, and you do hire some white people, you can still get a pattern and practice case against you. But is the EEOC and the DOJ, is anybody going to go after them for not hiring white people? No. I mean, that's the one thing that's going to save them here. Now, there might be remedies under state law, or there might be some local remedies.
Well, can you have a civil case? I mean,
that's what I mean. You'd file it like locally under state law. Your state EEOC might have an option for you too. But yeah, like the feds aren't going to get involved in this. And
no.
But yeah, no, this is This is really good evidence that they're not helping people.
And none of that gets enforced in California. None of this unequal hiring.
California doesn't care.
I mean,
and I was trying to if they're in California, that's screwed.
Yeah, they are, and funny enough, they're in a county that flipped red, Orange County. So they're probably reeing right now.
There's a couple of counties in California that flip red.
Yeah, but there was some weird stuff in Orange County where the county flipped red, but then I guess the representatives that were elected are blue. And so, and it took 3 weeks to count the votes. So
fortification.
There's some puzzlement about that. And then I guess the red candidates didn't run a very good game.
There's a county or two in California that still isn't done, I think, as of last week.
Seriously?
So,
wow.
How does that?
How does that work? Yeah.
Fortification.
I don't know. They're just like, they must be like, if somebody like me counting them and they get interrupted, so they got to start all over again.
Are they using clay tablets and cuneiform?
I don't know. Let me check if they're still going. I checked earlier last week. Let me see if they're still doing it.
But yeah, the thing for Avowed, the only way he kind of gets away with this is if nobody comes forward. That's the gist of it. If
I
people
don't
come
think it's-
forward and
well,
they care
If
enough,
you want my honest opinion, nothing is going to happen from this.
This is
Nothing.
performative, right? Because if you look at the studio pictures, they're like all white, right? So there's very few POC, and I think it's like a handful. And so this just seems like a massive sort of virtue signal that is disingenuous. It isn't
Yeah.
even honest.
Many such cases exist of
Yeah.
disingenuous virtue signaling.
And
yeah.
the what Smash has been saying and what my source has been talking about is that this is supported from the top, right? Like the reason you're not going to see any sort of action taken here for what's obviously not only a huge PR problem but a potential legal problem for the studio is because that upper management agrees with it. Now, I this is tough for me. I know one of the upper management, right? And very nice guy, one of the founders, very driven guy. I don't see him going along with this, but I think that even at the top of a company, you can be captured, right? You can be captured by your organization, and you can be in a position where it's simply impossible to speak out about these things.
Yeah. I just think that when people are saying things like, will Obsidian go under? The reality of the situation is they're owned by Microsoft, and the game is Game Pass. So they're basically their bills already paid for. You know what I mean? I am interested to see though what the Steam numbers are going to be, because I would assume that the Steam numbers are not influenced by the PC players.
It still has to perform on Game Pass. Just because it's
Yeah.
Game Pass doesn't instantly mean it makes money. Game Pass revenue is split based off of playtime, right? Playtime and installs. Some formula that they have. I'm not privy to the actual formula, but the way you would structure it is, number of downloads and installs, and then the playtime for the daily active users, and then you would split that Game Pass revenue that way. So the game still has to perform. And what's really weird here is that the game looks pretty good, from the streams.
Yeah,
right?
it does. I remember when the game got revealed during an Xbox showcase, and I mean, it looked like a game that I would be into, but I'm not playing this game now.
Well, the curious part is that they weren't allowed to stream the very beginning, which is obviously the character creator, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know what's in there, and we know that they're actively censoring what is allowed to be shown. It's very curious that you would censor the beginning part of a game like that. I mean, what spoilers could there be at the very beginning, right? And
also remember that Matt Hansen
so
said
what else?
that,
He said he wanted to be
Go
the
ahead, yeah.
wokest game ever.
well, he
God,
also
it
said
feels
just
like a
waiting for-
troll.
That's what
He
everyone
also
wants
said
in
just
their
wait until you
medieval
see the
fantasy
people.
games.
Yeah.
right?
It
He said- he
feels
said that
like
to
a
Elon Musk.
troll.
Probably a handicapped black woman.
Yeah.
She has like a medieval wheelchair, like the one that Bran Stark has, and
And she
I don't know,
goes,
for me,
she
with
goes
the
on
Game
the
of Thrones.
Obsidian-
she goes on a crusade to apologize to
It
everybody.
just kind of feels like they're just
Yeah.
like chasing the past glories of Bethesda. Like what's it called? Outer Worlds is just Fallout but worse. And that's kind of what Avowed looks like. Avowed looks like it's just Elder Scrolls but worse.
Well, I guess Chris was the magic at the studio, right? Because Fallout,
Yeah, Chris
New
Avalon,
Vegas, and so when he left, you got stuff like Outer Worlds, where the story was pretty meh and the combat was really clunky, and
I really wanted to like Outer Worlds Groms because I
did too.
I love their old game. New Vegas, Knights of the Old Republic 2. In some ways, Knights of the Old Republic 2, I think, is better than the first one. It's a great game, man. Like they've had so many great games.
Yeah,
It's
who was
sad.
it written by? Chris Avalon.
It's
Yeah.
sad to see a
Yeah,
studio
that's
fall
pretty
like this.
Yeah, it really is. And if they censored the beginning, what else are they holding back? Companies are getting smarter about this sort of backlash that has been happening this year against activist games, right? So they're hiding something in the character creator, and we know that one of them is definitely pronouns because that leaked. And going back, to what was the other game that just launched where they
Vilgard?
yeah, with Veilguard, they tightly restricted review copies at the last minute. They, to their most favorable reviewers, and they gave really short review times to others. And if you looked at the initial review stats, it was like something like 50 official reviews to the normal launch category of like 90. So it was like cut in half. So they know that it's a problem and they're reacting.
Yeah, like I was told that by a source already like a month ago or 2 months ago when they told me that, like I said before, like companies are going to be hiding things from you from going forward in marketing.
Yeah, they
They're
definitely
not going to be showing you everything.
And it's
But that's such a
completely
short-
obvious now.
That's just a short-term gain because as soon
You're
as
right.
word of mouth gets out, just like you've seen it with Dragon Age, I mean that game's fallen off a cliff.
Mhm.
Like with Dragon Age, they tried because the very first official trailer for it looked like Fortnite, and then people kind of went like, "What the hell is this?" And then the second trailer suddenly was like, "No, it's like dark and gritty and whatever," because like that's what people want. But in reality, the game was like that first trailer. Like I played the game 100%. I know it's like that first trailer, and then that dark trailer. There's about 4 parts of the game ish that are like that. You know what I mean? Of the entire game. So it's just they are going to start lying to you. You're right. It's a short term thing, but I think they just at this point they don't want these things to fail, and they're just trying to get money. I'm very interested to see too because next week we have that Indiana Jones game, and like nobody's.
Oh, does that come out next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
no one's talking about that game.
I didn't even know anything about it at all.
Well,
No,
I
yeah,
saw.
it's coming out.
Did
It's
you
coming out
see?
next week?
Did you see what they said? Somebody came out. I forget where this got broken out at, but apparently, the entire time, like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas were being consulted during development,
really?
and nobody's talking about that game. There's rumors that the pre-sales are shit.
Yeah, that's what I was told. Yeah.
We'll get to see what the numbers are on Steam. I mean, that's going to be
what
fun.
I was told. Physical.
Well,
pre-orders for
Lucasfilm has
PS5
destroyed
and
their
Xbox,
entire.
They're like less than 300 pre-orders across one of the biggest major retailers in America right now.
But to be fair, it's a Game Pass day one game.
You're right. Yeah.
You saw what happened
to
Star Wars Outlaws when it hit Steam. It didn't even hit 2,500 players. Big cap. Like
that's insane, dude. That's actually insane.
It's a Star Wars game. They're like, this is the thing. Indiana Jones, like, all I'm saying, my point is with that actually is Lucasfilm have destroyed every single franchise that is under their umbrella.
Here we go.
And no one now cares, including the gamers.
Here we go. Rhino's trying to segue into a long Lucasfilm tangent.
Star Wars, man.
No, but he is right though. Like Indiana Jones is.
No, I know. I'm just giving him shit.
Ruined.
Like
the movies are the new movies dog shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
Well, hey,
but that's next week, so that'll probably be a big thing people will talk about. So I guess we'll see if it's any good. I don't know.
Grums, I don't mean to circle back real quick, but it kind of broke up for me when you were talking about this. Did you say at these companies they're trying to hide the insanity now? Like they're trying to basically like tar and wrangle their people?
No,
to a certain extent, or I didn't hear what you said. They were trying to hide.
We were talking about how they were restricting review copies.
Oh, okay.
Having limitations like not showing the character creator in the game, and basically getting smart and running a much more defensive game now and that tells you how much of an impact this has had on them this year. I mean, going very activist and having this sort of stuff in the game has hit their bottom line hard. I can't think of a AAA game that succeeded this year aside from Call of Duty. And that was always a kind of a guaranteed thing. So that is devastating to the industry. And the fact that they are taking all these additional steps tells me that it's having a real impact, and that the plan that we all engaged in back in March, where we talked about not buying games for 2 years that do this sort of stuff, that and then engaging you guys YouTubers to talk about it, it has worked. And and they're definitely alerted now, and they're starting to hide stuff that way.
Yeah. Well, and David Jaffe's blaming us for Veilguard's failure now.
Do you think that they're gonna? I mean, do you foresee them in the future kind of taking all these lunatics and all the liabilities and like, oh, you guys are working on the game. You're gonna work in this room. You guys are the A team, and in the meantime, they've got like guys on the other side of the building like get this done, and then they're like, "Yo, yeah, no, yay, neurodiversity and neurodivergence and all that."
I think that's
are they
happening at
even
the
close?
smaller studios. I think that's happening at the smaller studios. I know for a fact it's happening at least 2 that I talked to. And they do it very quietly. And one of the first things they do is they eliminate remote work, because a lot of these activists gravitate towards
Ubisoft's trying
work.
to do that.
And the other way is during interviews they're asking some questions that can sort of like flag you one way or the other. And nothing overt, but they're just feeling people out more now. They're being more selective, especially since money is tight. It's hard to get funding right now. And so, they're being very careful about who they hire. At the bigger studios, though, I think you've got a big problem where the stuff is so entrenched and it's still coming from top down. Like in Microsoft, it looks very obvious that it's from Microsoft, the parent entity, that stuff isn't going to go away until they drive their games into the ground completely. I think.
I that makes sense. I was just curious if they're starting to silo their liabilities and put them on like, look, you're on this big project now.
Yeah, if they got the cash flow,
just keep working at it.
These larger companies have cash flow that kind of disguises the problem for a little bit, and executives don't want to be pinned down for these failures. So you're going to see some gymnastics there about why these games failed in their end of year financial reports. It's going to be very interesting.